When people look at me today, they see strength, they hear confidence, they hear clarity. They assume I have always been this grounded, this self aware, this show of myself. But what I don't see is how many times I had to lose myself to become this version of me. How many seasons I had to survive quietly. How many times I had to rebuild without applause. How many moments I had to sit alone with questions nobody prepared me for. I was born in Warri, Delta State, Nigeria. I grew up in a culture where community mattered, where people knew your parents, where expectations were spoken and unspoken, and where faith was not optional. Church wasn't just a place we went on a Sunday. Church was structure. Church was identity. Church was safety. From a very young age, I found myself teaching. I taught in the children's church, standing in front of young people, explaining lessons, values, and faith in a way that they could understand. I didn't know what leadership was back then. I didn't know what purpose meant. I just knew that when I spoke, people listened. Later on, while I was still in university, I pastored a group of people. Again, responsibility came early. I was guiding others while still trying to understand myself. I carried people's problem. I carried expectations. I carried spiritual responsibility. And in the Nigerian church culture, when people see that kind of commitment in you, they assume you're strong enough to carry everything. You're just expected to keep showing up. Looking back now, I realize that why I understood scriptures, discipline, service, I did not understand people. I didn't understand personalities. I didn't understand emotional intelligence, and I didn't understand romantic dynamics. So those things were not taught. You were taught to pray, you were taught to fast, you were taught to wait, but nobody taught you how people behaved when emotions, ego, insecurity, desire, and power collide. As I grew older, I started noticing something that quietly disturbed me. Many Christian brothers, especially the ones considered serious and committed, didn't choose the most spiritually devoted women. They often went for women who were not too spiritual and not too worldly, women who dressed well, expressed themselves freely, and carried a certain softness. I watched this pattern over and over again, and it confused me deeply because I had done everything right. I was committed, I was disciplined, I was present in church, I was spiritually grounded, yet devotion felt invisible. That realization planted a seed of disappointment in my heart, a quiet one. I didn't say it out loud, but I felt it. By the time I reached the age where marriage became a serious conversation, I felt delusioned. I had believed that commitment would be rewarded, that devotion would be valued, that doing things right would protect me. Instead, I felt overlooked, and slowly that disappointment turned into confusion. That confusion turned into exhaustion. At some point, I drifted from my faith, not because I stopped believing in God, but because I was tired of pretending I wasn't hurt. I eventually found my way back, but I returned changed, less naive, more observant, more cautious. Before I came to Canada, I was engaged, not casually, properly engaged. I had wedding cards, printed, families were informed, plans were made. The future felt settled. Then one day, without explanation, the engagement was cut off. No real reason, no closure, just silence. And if you've ever had to tell people that something you just announced publicly is no longer happening, you understand how destabilizing that kind of loss is. It doesn't just hurt emotionally, it shakes your identity. It makes you question your judgment. It makes you replay conversations, decisions, prayers, and moments in your head, wondering where things went wrong. When the engagement was called off, I ran back to church. I needed familiarity. I needed grounding. I needed something that reminded me of home. Around that time, I had written a book on leadership, inspiration, and empowerment. Writing had always been a way for me to process my thoughts. And I believe that when I found something, I want to share it with the world. And I do that through that teaching or writing things in a book. So I shared my book with some teenagers in the church I attended then, which I was teaching in. The same way I've always shared my knowledge back. I wanted to gift them the book based on it was going to really add value to their life. Freely, I gave it out. The next thing I knew, I was suspended from the church. The reason given was that I did not thank the current founder of the church, but I thanked my campus pastors in the book. But I didn't mention the church owner. So, not because I disrespected him, but because I didn't want it to look like I was using his name to promote myself. So I just excluded his name from the book. But it wasn't taken that way. It was more like I totally neglected it. How old was I? I was maybe in my maybe 20, 21. I was still learning. I never even knew it was my first book. I didn't even know if that was a thing. For 3 months, I was isolated in that church. So when you get suspended, people don't talk to you, they don't sit near you, they avoid you. Every church member does. So if you've never experienced church isolation, let me explain it simply. It feels like being punished in a place where you expected safety. It feels like being rejected by people you served faithfully. It messes with your sense of belonging. That season taught me something painful but necessary. Institutions don't always protect purpose. And sometimes the place you pour yourself into will still wound you deeply. Eventually, I entered another relationship in Canada. I was honest about my past, I was transparent about my mistakes. I cheated during the relationship phase, I owned it. It's the wrong thing to do. We talked about it in the relationship, we cried about it, and he said he had forgiven me. He insisted that, you know what, he cannot stay without me. We can go ahead and get married. He said he didn't want to live life without me. So we got married, and forgiveness was never real. In that marriage, my past became a weapon. The cheating, which happened before the marriage, was constantly brought up. Insults became normal. Subtle remark turned into verbal abuse. I started shrinking, watching my words, second guessing myself, losing my confidence, losing my voice. In Nigeria culture, you were taught to endure, to pray harder, to submit, to keep the marriage. So I tried. I prayed, I endured, I explained, I hoped. At some point, I became pregnant and fear took over, and that pregnancy didn't stay. I wasn't sure I wanted to continue in a marriage where I felt emotionally unsafe. That decision I took became another source of conflict, another labor, another judgment. Later, we went for counseling. And if you've ever been to counseling in a marriage like that, you know how it goes. In counseling, my partner at that time spoke to the counselor and told him it was deeply hurt with the fact that I had aborted the baby that I was pregnant with. So in counseling, we sat there together. We about communication, differences, expectations, and compromise. They gave us homework. We talked about love languages. We talked about patience. We left the session hopeful, thinking things are improving. So you think the conversations are actually working, but sometimes counseling doesn't heal what one person has already decided to abandon. During that same period, he cheated. I didn't know immediately. I kept trying and we got pregnant again. 2 weeks after childbirth, when my body was still healing, when my emotions were fragile, when my entire focus was survivor, he told me he had cheated. That moment broke something in me that never fully returned. I stayed for months for the baby, for stability, for hope. Then I saw that one of the things was consistent. The insult didn't stop. The emotional abuse didn't stop. It never went away. I thought having a baby will take it away, but it didn't. Then I got to the point where I could no longer take it anymore. My child was 6 months old. Then I left, thinking I will return in 2 weeks. When I went for 2 weeks, I left the baby with him and I said, I'll be back in 2 weeks. This marriage doesn't seem to be working. Instead, within the 2 weeks I was away, actually a few days I was away, my partner served me divorce paper. Then custody battles followed. Silence followed. Loss followed. After that season, I became very quiet. The woman who spoke freely, laughed easily, and connected openly disappeared. But in that silence, something else was happening. I was rebuilding. I went back to school. I completed a degree with excellent grades. Then I decided to study people, study personality, worked on my knowledge on emotional intelligence. I started to understand pattern I didn't know before. I worked on myself intentionally. Slowly, my voice returned, not loud, not defensive, but grounded. Even after all that, I tried love again. Today, when I speak from understanding, not bitterness, from clarity, not chaos. And if you're watching this and rebuilding your life quietly, maybe after a divorce, heartbreak, relocation, disappointment, or loss, I want you to hear this clearly. You are not behind. You are not broken. You are becoming. Sometimes life strips you of everything familiar so you can finally meet yourself without noise. Canada didn't save me. Marriage didn't save me. I saved myself by learning, by healing, and by choosing to rise again and trusting God in the process. If you are in that in between season, not knowing who you are now or who you were before, this is my advice to you. I want you to hear this today. You can heal, you can grow, your voice will return to. My name is Flowealth, and I'll see you in the next video.